Today we're going to be examining this track. Whenever I see this track, I think of the past. Am I wrong? Many different manufacturers use this type of track, some which don't make very good rides, but there are two main users, Arrow Dynamics and Vekoma. Today I'll show you how you can tell what's an Arrow and what's a Vekoma.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hey guys, and welcome to 808 Coaster Life. If you're new to this channel and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. My goal with this video is for you to be able to look at a POV or an off-ride and be able to tell what's an Arrow and what's a Vekoma coaster. The two manufacturers offer some models that the other doesn't. Both manufacturers offer suspended coasters, but most of them were made by Arrow. However, 3 Vekoma suspended coasters, or swinging turns, operate, including Dreamcatcher at Bobby on Land. Both manufacturers offer mine trains as well, but you can tell something is an Arrow mine train because typically they don't have a spine. Instead, just 2 rails with cross ties and sometimes wooden supports. Vekoma mine trains typically have steel supports and a spine in the middle. Arrow is the only manufacturer of the two that ever built a hypercoaster. However, Vekoma has shown us that they are capable of building a hypercoaster, and I really want one built. By the way, D.H. Morgan was another manufacturer that made similar hypercoasters, but their track looks a little different than Arrow's. In addition, Arrow offered the 40 coaster and hybrid coasters like Gemini, while Vekoma offered the Flying Dutchman, tilt coaster, suspended looping coaster or SLC, and wooden coaster. They truly have variety. Since we knocked most of the models out, now I have to deal with the sit-down looping coasters. Both manufacturers made similar sit-down looping coasters, but hopefully with these tips you'll be able to distinguish them apart. So both manufacturers offer a shuttle coaster. Vekoma offers the Boomerang, while Arrow offers the launched Shuttle coaster. Boomerangs are everywhere, so you'll easily know what's a boomerang. They have 2 spikes, a cobra roll, and a vertical loop. This also includes inverted and giant inverted boomerangs. Arrow shuttle loops, on the other hand, are not very common. Some examples include Sidewinder at Iʻll Gardens, Diamondback at Frontier City, and Revolution at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. They feature just 1 vertical loop and 2 elevated launches. So if you find yourself near one of these, you should get a ride on it before they get removed. In general, Vekoma tends to build clonable coasters, while Arrow builds more custom coasters. These sit-down looping coasters generally feature similar inversions, but there are some elements unique to Vekoma and elements unique to Arrow. Elements unique to Arrow include the bow tie and interlocking loops, and if you're wondering about Jock and Fire, I'll get to that later. Elements unique to Vekoma include the cobra roll, butterfly, and sea serpent roll. All other inversions can be seen on both Arrow and Vekoma coasters. Besides the launched shuttle loops, Arrow never used launches. Vekoma uses launches on their Spaghetti Bowl coasters like Rockin' Roller Coaster and on Space Mountain Mission 2 at Disneyland Paris, which apparently is now called Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain Rebel Mission.
What?
If you look at Arrow coasters, you'll notice that the cross-tie spacing changes. As you can see here on Viper at Six Flags Darien Lake, the cross-tie spacing is pretty close together here on the double corkscrew, but right after this element, the cross-ties are more spaced out. How about Vekoma? If you look at this POV of Boomerang at the same park, you'll see that the spacing between the cross ties are close and consistent. I don't know why Arrow did this, but it is a way for me to pick out an Arrow from a Vekoma. If you look at your average Arrow looper, you'll notice that the track profiling isn't the best. The transitions are very jerky, which can lead to an uncomfortable ride experience. The inversions on Arrow coasters are smooth, but they kind of behave like Planet Coaster prefab elements. Vekomas actually have pretty smooth transitions. If you look at this POV of Blue Hawk at Six Flags Over Georgia, you can see that these turns are much smoother than Arrow's. Of course, it's not the most perfect profiling, but it works for the time. This is because Vekoma's track pieces are bolted together, while Arrow's track pieces are welded together. This is why it's easy to relocate a Vekoma coaster, but it's very hard, if not impossible, to relocate an Arrow coaster. Based on that, I can tell you that Vekoma SLCs are not rough because of bad track profiling. It could be because of the actual type of track or trains. I wonder if it's possible to RMC a steel coaster. Along with these, I have some minor differences that might help you. First, since Arrow was based in America and Vekoma is based in the Netherlands, Arrow's main market was the US, while Vekoma's main market is Europe. Even though I want a new Vekoma in the US. Arrow Dynamics coasters are known for their standout lift-hill sound. Doesn't that sound lovely? Well, how about Vekoma's? Another difference could be the ride's value. If an Arrow isn't very good, park fans would still want it there because it's a classic, and they're not wrong. But if a Vekoma is bad, people would want it in the dumpster. Some Vekoma coasters use 2 spines in certain higher stress sections of a coaster. Arrow never did that. Some Vekomas also feature vest restraints to reduce headbanging. I wish they could do the same thing to some Arrow loopers. Lastly, some Vekomas have a front car that's round, while Arrow always used an angular front car. Although there are many tips in this video, of course there will always be exceptions. To name a few, Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood and Roadrunner Express at Six Flags Fiesta Texas are Arrow coasters with great track profiling thanks to Alan Schilke. The Vekoma Corkscrew with Bayer and Curve is Vekoma's first coaster model that featured Arrow-like transitions. This is because Vekoma's very first coasters were designed by Arrow Dynamics. Other old Vekoma coasters also have Arrow-like profiling. Drachenfire at Busch Gardens Williamsburg was an Arrow looper that featured many elements new to the company, including the Cobra Roll, cutback, and wraparound corkscrew. Busch Gardens Williamsburg originally wanted B&M to make this ride, but they were busy, so they made Arrow do it. Unfortunately, Arrow trying to be B&M didn't work out well. The ride ended up being very painful and was eventually removed from the park in 1998. Ninja at Six Flags St. Louis was originally started by Arrow Dynamics, but since Arrow fell into bankruptcy, it was finished by Vekoma. RCDB says it's a Vekoma coaster, but I just consider it both. So that wraps it up. But what are these manufacturers like now? Well, unfortunately, Arrow went bankrupt in late 2001 after the opening of X2. S&S purchased Arrow's assets, so if parks need new parts for their Arrow coasters, they can ask S&S. Vekoma, however, is very different than in the past. They've updated their track and train design and even hired a new designer that makes great layouts. Abyssus is one of Vekoma's new coasters coming to Energylandia in hopefully 2020. This company is on the rise, which is why I really want a new Vekoma thrill coaster in America. So I hope these tips help you. Remember, if you're still stuck, you can always look it up on RCDB. So if you enjoyed this video, then please let me know by leaving a like on this video. Let me know down in the comments which manufacturer do you prefer. And if you're new to this channel and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.